why don't you never use a tie? And how do you speak English so well? These are two questions we were curious about.
Okay. You know, after the prison, I felt I limited myself enough. I didn't like Thai even before the prison. After the prison, I really felt that enough is enough. That's it. But after some years, it happened so that Clinton, when I was a minister, and at one of the meetings which we had in Y Plantation, Clinton asked me, he said, look, it's not my business, but can you tell me why don't you have a tie? I said, well, you know, we have the law in Israel. Those who are 9 years in Soviet prison don't have to do it. So he laughed and said, it's okay with me. Then it happened so that 2 weeks after this, I was in Russia and met with Prime Minister Chernomyrdin, then there was. And he says to me, tell me why you are without tie. Is it kind of a protest? I said, no, first of all, we have a law in Israel. And second, I have permission from Clinton. He said, oh, okay, then it's okay with me too. So now I can say I have permission from Americans and from Russians, so it's okay.
It's okay. Yeah. And
as the English. You know, when I became activist in our movement, one of my functions was to be like unofficial spokesman, to speak a lot with foreign tourists who were coming and to whom we had to give a lot of information about what's happening with Soviet Jews, and foreign journalists. So it was a good training for me. And when I was arrested, Andrei Sakharov, our leader of human rights movement in the Soviet Union, said to the journalist that Sharansky was saying the same thing that we were doing, but he was saying them in English, and that's why he was arrested. So that's why I can say that English is the language which helped me to be arrested. Yeah.
To be arrested.
Yeah.
Which is the happiest and which the saddest day of your life?
When I first met my wife near the synagogue in Moscow in 1973, in the middle of our struggle, I didn't know then that it was the happiest day, but I felt something like this. Then, of course, it was the day of our meeting, the day of my release, which started in the prison, which in the middle of the day I crossed the Glienicke Bridge in Germany and met my wife. And at the end of this day, I was with all our people near the Kotel, dancing and singing and praying. So it was really the day when I went straight from hell to paradise. And it still continues.
The saddest day?
The saddest day probably was the day when I found out about my father's death in prison. So not only that your father passed away, but you cannot really be with your family, with your mother, and that was a difficult moment.
Of course. If there was a game of chess between Israel and its enemies, how would you win the game?
Well, that's exactly what Israel is doing all the time. We are playing French defense, which means that we let our enemies attack us, and in the meantime we are building our own life. And when we find out the weak places in weak spots in our enemies' plans, we attack them. And usually it must be quick and strong attack. We don't have opportunity to have long wars. And in between the wars, we have to deal with our problem, building our life, and not only fighting with our enemies. Yeah.
How to win the war against Iran?
Well, first of all, to be true to ourselves and to keep strengthening our people and our country. It's first. Second, to to continue using our great advantage in our brain power, and to make sure that we have upper hand at any moment, and to be ready to use this power when necessary. And the third, and maybe no less important, is to remember that we have a huge advantage of being a free country, and that the people of Iran in the end also want to be free. And it's advice not only to Israel, but to all the leaders of the free world, to remember that in the end we will be allies of Iranian people if we will help them to have more democratic regime, and not the enemies of these people. So to think more about building bridges with democratic dissidents of Iran, and less how to have good relations with the dictators.
And what do you think about the nuclear deal with Iran?
I think it's very dangerous.
Dangerous.
Very dangerous for us, very dangerous for the world. It's these type of illusions that if you don't have war, then things will become better. If you have trade instead of having war, then things will become better one day by themselves. It's of course it's a big mistake, and I'm less concerned about the fact that Iran will have nuclear weapons, because it's still a long way to this. But I am concerned with the fact that Iran can very quickly become a local superpower, and the free world doesn't link it to changing of their behavior, to stop supporting terrorism, to stop supporting to stop trying to destroy Israel. The fact that free world agreed to cooperate with Iran without linking it to the demand that Iran will stop supporting world terror and attempts to destroy Israel is very alarming from my point of view.
And what would you answer to people who say that Israeli Russians are not Jews? Sometimes the people say that.
Jews in Russia for 2 generations were assimilated by force. We were fully disconnected from anything Jewish in our life. And the fact that we returned to our roots, to our history, to our family, and we start fighting and won in the struggle to return to Israel, it's a miracle. It's really a miracle which happened. It's not surprising that there were so many mixed marriages. Look, in many countries there are very high level of mixed marriages without forced assimilation. So as a result, among those more than 1 million Jews who came, there are about 200,000 who are halachically non-Jewish. But it is the people who expressed their desire to live in Jewish family when they decided to marry Jews. They expressed their desire to live in Jewish state. They expressed their desire to build a Jewish state and to fight for Jewish state. And I believe that it's our obligation to create conditions in which they will feel welcomed when they want to join also Jewish people halachically. So the debate is not around the fact whether they are halachically Jewish or not. They are not halachically Jewish. The debate is how welcoming our society should be and how helpful it should be to those who want to join us, not only physically, not only in fighting with us, not only in living in Jewish families, but also to being Jewish.
Russia has a special relationship with Iran. What do you think are its intentions regarding Israel?
Well, as the one who was involved for many years in discussion with the Russian leaders about Iran, I can say Russian policy towards Iran was not helpful for us, but it has nothing to do with the attitude to Israel. It is all about relations of Russia with America, and Russia wanted to show to America all the time that they should take them Russians seriously, and the way how they wanted to make them to take seriously was by cooperation with Iran. Unfortunately, we are paying the price for this. I have to say, though it sounds strange, but on the level of direct relations between Russia and Israel, relations are good. In fact, these 1 million Jews who came from Russia is kind of a bridge in many aspects, in cultural and cooperation in many fields. But the fact that the Russian leadership is at the same time sees regimes like Iranian or Syrian regime as their potential allies, and sometimes not only potential, is very problematic for us. So we have to separate these two issues. On one hand, Russia does give us opportunity to, for example, for me as the chairman of Jewish Agency, to have a huge operation in dealing with the Jewish communities in Russia. Authorities make no problems. In fact, they are cooperating with us when Jewish communities need the help. They try to have normal relations, direct relations with Israel in many aspects. On the other hand, their policy vis-à-vis Iran, vis-à-vis Syria, is extremely problematic, and we should be very frank and very direct in our criticism of this policy.
And what do you think of the preference, of the Israeli preference for Netanyahu in these elections?
Well, I think these elections showed again that there is, at this moment, there is no other political leader that Israelis feel can take them through these very challenging times, and whatever many people in the world think about, for example, policy of Netanyahu, Israelis feel that policy of Netanyahu towards Iran is the only one which is taking into account the real needs of security of the state of Israel. As to the other issues, of course, there are a lot of debates. Israel is a very democratic country, and Israelis, each of us has many opinions, different opinions on every issue. But though there are periods when one party is more popular than the other, but all the polls of the last 6 years at least showed that when it comes to personal choice, who can be the leader of Israel in this period of time, overwhelmingly, always, majority of Israelis vote for Bibi Netanyahu.
And when you were in prison, how did you imagine Israel? And was it up to your expectations?
Yeah, I saw Israel as a true believer sees the next world, as a Gan Eden, as the final station of all our dreams and prayers. And I have to say that now, that very day when I came to Israel, as I said, I went straight from hell to paradise, and I was in heavens. And when you are in the heavens, there is only one way down. So now for almost 30 years, 28 years, I slowly go down closer to the earth, and I still feel myself in paradise. Of course, it's paradise which needs a lot of work to do, many things, many challenges which we have to face, many bridges which we have to build among ourselves. But this feeling that you live the place where Jewish people rebuild themselves after thousands of years of exile, where there is unique his experiment which never happened in the world before. For 2,000 years of exiles, people are coming from hundreds of diasporas, from hundreds of cultural backgrounds. When they see answer almost on every question, including the question who is a Jew, they give different answers, and now they have to to live in one country and to feel themselves one people and more than one people, one family. And that's what's happening every day. I think it's really a miracle. And I feel that the future of Jewish people, and to some extent the future of the world, is defined by what's happening in Israel.
The future of the world.
Yeah, the future of the world, because I'll can explain it more. I believe the two big needs of every person and of every society and of every civilization is to belong and to be free, to have identity and to have freedom. And unfortunately now in today's world, in a very complicated world, there is part of the world where people decided that identity is more important than freedom, and fundamentalism is becoming stronger and stronger in the countries around us. And on the other hand, there is free world, Europe especially, which decided that freedom is more important than identity. And all this post-nationalism, post-modernism and multiculturalism, and which makes life thinner and thinner and thinner, and people know how to enjoy freedom, they don't know how to fight for freedom. And between these two worlds of identity without freedom and freedom without identity, there is a small country, Israel, and Jews, which tries to do what Jews are doing through these 1,000 years, how to keep freedom and identity together. And they succeed. And I think that's exactly that lesson, or Legaim, or that's exactly our big present to the world. The lesson is, yes, you can have a very meaningful, important life connecting your past and your future, and at the same time to be a free, democratic country.
Do you believe in God, and are you a religious person?
Well, I believe that people are created in the image of God. Whether it is God who created them in their image, or whether they created this image, it's a different question. But yes, I did feel in our own life how this belief in the great principles of that we are created in the image of God, and we have to live in accordance with these principles of inner freedom and high morality, how it was giving us strength to fight and to change this world. As to the question of religion, whether you're religious, I would say, tell me after how many mitzvot, there are Taryag mitzvot, 613 commandments, obligations. After how many commandments you become religious? After 215, 347, 400? If you tell me exactly, I'll answer you this question. Otherwise, I don't think this question has any meaning.
What do you think of President Obama? Is he abandoning Israel as an ally?
Look,
some people say he is a Muslim.
All this is nonsense. He the President of the United States of America, and no President of the United States of America can abandon Israel, because after all, Israel, just because of the reasons that I spoke before, Israel is one of the very few, if not the only, civilization which is trying to keep identity and freedom together. And that's exactly what American history and political experience teaches us. America is very close to Israel. Israel is very close to America in terms of ideology, in terms of deep principles of democracy and identity and so on. Having said all this, some leaders can have some illusions or some wrong evaluations of the world. No doubt that President Obama had a wrong evaluation of what is happening in the Arab world when he thought that Mubarak and Assad will be forever, and that is very important to keep them as a partners, if not as their allies. And President Obama, I believe, didn't estimate the passion of Iranian people to be free when America didn't support in 2009 the attempt to be free. And I believe
the revolution?
Yeah, in 2009 when millions of Iranian people were ready to go to barricades, the leader of the free world said that engagement with the regime is more important for us than changing of the regime. And it was nobody expected America to send their troops. All what was needed that America will express their full moral support to Iranian people who want the change of the regime. It didn't happen. And I believe now it is mistake, by the way, not only of President Obama, of the leader, practically most of the leaders of the free world mistakenly think that appeasement of Iran, without demanding from Iran to stop supporting world terror, can bring peace. So can we have disagreements with our best ally, with the leaders of the United States of America? Yes. Can they have wrong estimation of our area or of our neighbors? Definitely. We saw it a few years ago, and I'm afraid it repeats again. Can we say that President Obama wants to abandon Israel, wants weak Israel, doesn't want to cooperate with Israel? That's all nonsense. America will continue being our strong ally because, after all, we and they see the future, our future and future of mankind in the same way, and our enemies see it differently.
And can you tell us about your wedding in secret in the Moscow synagogue?
We didn't have a secret wedding in the Moscow synagogue because Moscow synagogue would not agree to have a chuppah for such troublemakers, and I was already a troublemaker, refusing and so on.
They didn't want to?
No. So, but one of the leaders of the religious community agreed to help to us, and he brought to our apartment one of the rabbis from our synagogue who had the right to have this ceremony, and we had this ceremony of our wedding in a very small apartment, one-room apartment in Moscow, just when I was released from prison, where I spent for 15 days, only because President Nixon came with the official visit, and troublemakers like me were put in prison for these days. So I was, on the 3rd of July, President Nixon left Moscow. On the 3rd of July, I was released from prison. On the 4th of July, we had our wedding, and on the 5th of July, Avital left for Israel. We hoped that I'll join her in a few months. I joined her in 12 years. And since then, we enjoy our life in paradise. Okay. I always give advice to people: before you go to prison, you have to marry the way how I did. You must have your Avital.
What do you think of Mexico?
We saw very little of Mexico. We were on the great beach in Caribbean Sea, so it's really great. The sea is great. But as I can say something about Jewish community of Mexico. It's unbelievably Jewish. Almost on all Jewish communities of the world, you will never find Jewish community where 95% of kids go to Jewish schools. It doesn't exist simply in any other place. So that's very good. It's also a very generous community, giving a lot of support to Israel or to different programs building bond between Jewish people and Israel. If you take in proportion how much money through Keren Hayesod and other sources this community gives to Israel or Israeli causes, it will be probably number one in the world in proportion to the number of Jews who live in this community. Having said this, I would say my advice to the leaders of the Jewish community is not to take anything for granted, but to keep working in order that this community will continue being as Zionist, as Jewish as it was until now. Well, we Jews should not take for granted. We should continue fighting. Even the existence of the State of Israel, this great miracle and great achievement, and even now when Israel is so strong and so successful, we cannot take it for granted. We have to continue fighting to make sure that the future of Israel and Jewish people will be guaranteed. I was today in the Museum of Tolerance. I have to say it's absolutely unique museum. We can learn about Shoah in many places in the world, and it's very important to learn about Shoah, or about the Holocaust. In Yad Vashem, in the Museum of Holocaust in Washington, of course in Auschwitz and other places. But here it is not museum, it's not simply about the past. It's about the people who can do it, who did it in the past and who can do it today, and how it was happening, and how naturally happened Shoah and the Holocaust, and so many people contributed to this without even realizing it, and how today it can easily happen, and sometimes it's happening, and we should not run away from our responsibility for Holocaust which happens these days, whether in Rhodesia or some other place. So I think you can be very proud of having such unique museum, which I didn't see in any other place in the world.